So, the Jimmy Butler trade that everybody has been anticipating has finally happened. Jimmy Butler now finds himself playing for the Philadelphia 76ers, an organization that was desperately looking for another star player to play beside both Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. And then when it comes to the Minnesota Timberwolves, they received two role players who both space out the floor rather well and understand what they need to do on the floor and possibly won't overstep their boundaries when it comes to both Andrew Wiggins and Karl-Anthony Towns supposedly being the cornerstones of the organization. Now honestly, I don't want to make a winners or loser video when it comes to this transaction because, to be honest with you all, it's pretty early to make a decision on who exactly came on top of this trade. And also, I've learned within the last 2 to 3 years not to overreact to something that has occurred, because a lot of times there's multiple things that have to transpire before we can thoroughly understand who's going to come out on top of the situation. And also, I'm not going to sit here and act like either sides don't have any drawback when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers. Yes, they got the star player that they were looking for. However, Jimmy Butler will be 30 before the next season begins, and he will be looking for a contract. So paying him $30+ million all the way up until he's 34, 35 years of age, that doesn't sound necessarily ideal. And then when it comes to the Minnesota Timberwolves, yes, they got two players who are nowhere near as good as Jimmy Butler, at least in my eyes. And on top of that, when you start to look at the grand scheme of things, the bigger picture, they did give up Zach LaVine, Lauri Markkanen, and potentially, depending on what Chris Dunn may become down the line, they gave up all of those players and basically ended up with two other role players. But again, I thoroughly understand why they did it, especially the Minnesota Timberwolves, because again, they needed role players, players who understood what they needed to do on the team and understood their role and accepted it to build around both Andrew Wiggins and Karl-Anthony Towns, the two cornerstones of their organization. Or at least that's what we believe that they are. See, that's the part of this whole entire thing that I want to talk about. People are casually just reporting this and casting blame really over the past several months on Jimmy Butler and Thibodeau for how the organization has been a little bit dysfunctional over the past several months now. However, many people are failing to recognize, or at least I guess they don't want to talk about, the elephant in the room, and that is, after all of the transactions, after all of the trades, after all of the signings, is Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins actually good enough to lead you to a championship? Matter of fact, is Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins even good enough to make a playoff appearance in the Western Conference, especially this upcoming season? But before we get into the video, first let me give a huge shout out to today's sponsors, and that is SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a great platform that allows its users to buy tickets to any event that they want to attend. Regardless if it's an NBA game, an NFL game, or if you just want to watch a comedy show, SeatGeek has your back and they're the perfect platform for you. Now personally, I've used SeatGeek multiple times, and like I told you all last time, I'm going to use SeatGeek to make sure I can go watch my man Trae Young shoot all them threes, and hopefully he gonna be making them, because if he is, you know, I'm gonna be in the crowd yelling Treyway every single time he makes a shot. And the greatest part about it is I've actually already found a few tickets that I like. And the reason why it was so easy for me to find these tickets is because SeatGeek is user-friendly. SeatGeek organizes the seats for the best deal on the platform, and they are always on point. They organize it simply through color, so if it's a red dot, you want to stay away from those seats, but if it's a green dot, it is green for go, so go ahead and cop those tickets. And I must admit, the pricing is always really reasonable and always really good every single time I've utilized the platform. And luckily for everyone out there who is a first-time user, SeatGeek is allowing me to give you a promo code to utilize on your first purchase with $20 off. All you have to do is type in LOW, L-O-W, for the promo code, and you will receive $20 off for your first purchase. And to make it even easier for you, all you have to do is click the link in the description and it will redirect you to where you need to be. And again, huge shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. Now first, let's talk about the actual facts. Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins are both first overall draft picks in two very respectable draft classes, 2014 and 2015. Both of these players had pretty high expectations, as one may assume, as they were the first overall draft picks, and I believe some of those expectations were justifiable, especially because they have both traits and characteristics that you would believe would carry over to the professional level when they were entering the league. Andrew Wiggins is an above average athlete who has some hops to his game and has the ability to create his own shot. And then when it comes to Karl-Anthony Towns, he's easily one of the more offensively gifted big men in the NBA right now, who can give you 10 to 12 rebounds on a night-to-night basis. And not only were Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins expected to bring in a new era of Minnesota Timberwolves basketball, but they were also expected to be part of the process of ushering in a new era of basketball for the NBA. Because with a lot of the young talent entering the NBA, especially some of the young talent that is all composed on a few teams in the league, Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins still stood out very early on in their career. And a lot of people just assumed giving them 2 or 3 more years, everything would really just work itself out. However, here we are now, 2 or 3 years down the road, now without Jimmy Butler, who many people, including myself, would believe is the sole reason why they even made the playoffs last year. A lot of people's expectations have started to decrease over the past handful of seasons. Real quick rant before I get into this video, because it's really a huge part of my opinion when it comes to both Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. For the love of God, people, please, I beg of you, please, stop comparing teenagers to all-time greats in NBA history. This happens every single year. It doesn't matter if people write in blog posts, articles, or even videos here on YouTube. For whatever reason, people deem it necessary to compare a teenager, a player who hasn't stepped foot in the NBA, to an all-time great. Not only is it disrespectful to the all-time great, but it doesn't do the young prospect any justice that they have these ridiculous claims of who they are supposed to be. Now, with that being said, let's just remove the ridiculous claims of Andrew Wiggins and Karl-Anthony Towns supposed to be the next Shaq and Kobe in the NBA, because that was laughable. What I want to know is, again, can these two players actually lead their team to a championship, or again, even a playoff appearance, or even if Andrew Wiggins could be an all-NBA performer? First, when it comes to Karl-Anthony Towns, like I said before, he's extremely gifted when it comes to what he does offensively. He can space the floor out, he's a solid low post player, and he can give you around 10 to 12 rebounds. However, there's 2 problems that I have with Karl-Anthony Towns. A, defensively, he just doesn't look that good at all. The second thing that I have a problem with Karl-Anthony Towns is his lack of aggressiveness. Hopefully we can see some progression from him, but I must admit, Karl-Anthony Towns has a really solid base. I just need to start seeing those numbers translate to wins, because that's why they're playing. But then when it comes to Andrew Wiggins, it's a totally different story. Andrew Wiggins is by far one of the most underwhelming first overall picks that we have seen in the last 10 years. There's not really much that he brings to the table. He's a poor defender, he doesn't facilitate the ball, nor does he space out the floor. And I know what some of you all are going to type in the comment section, 20 points low, he averaged 23 points. But that's not as valuable as it used to be. Sure, in the 90s and the 2000s, being a 20-point scorer was valuable, especially because defense was at an all-time high. But in today's NBA, where there's nobody playing defense, and even 2 years ago when Andrew Wiggins averaged 20 points and there was a historic amount of players who averaged 20 points during that season, and that number is 33 players, Andrew Wiggins just doesn't stand out as much as many people believe he does. And even when it comes to his ability to score 20 points, if you compare him to the other 32 players who averaged 20 points or better in the 2016-2017 season, Andrew Wiggins is by far one of the least efficient players out of that bunch. Keep in mind, Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, they got paid. Also keep in mind, both Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins, at least what has been reported, they wanted Jimmy Butler to no longer be in the organization. Or at least they definitely didn't mind if he wasn't there when the season began. And also keep in mind, the organization has put the pieces around these two players for them to be successful. So it just doesn't make any sense that here we are now, 4 and 5 years into their careers, and we are not sure on what type of success that they will see. And the reason why, to me, this is so interesting and why it's so blatant is because, like I stated before, Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins are not only supposed to have the responsibility of shouldering the Minnesota Timberwolves as an organization, but also they're left with the responsibility of ushering in a new generation of talent. They were drafted in draft classes that, like I stated before, were very respectable, especially when you look at the other players that were drafted after them. And so when I see the Milwaukee Bucks, Philadelphia 76ers, Boston Celtics, and even the Denver Nuggets all have the amount of success that they are having, despite the fact that majority of those teams did not pick their franchise players within the top 1 or 2 picks in the draft classes or even the lottery. And so when I see the level of success that they're able to achieve, while they've been in the NBA fewer years than both Andrew Wiggins and Karl-Anthony Towns, it's rather disappointing. So those are my thoughts. Please let me know what you think about Karl-Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins in the comment section below, and the potential that they are supposed to possess, but quite frankly we just haven't seen it yet, because I honestly believe that they can go down as one of the most overhyped young duos in recent history. Also, let me know what you think about the trade as well, and if you believe Jimmy Butler will fit with the Philadelphia 76ers. And a huge shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. Thank you so very much. Don't forget to click the link in the description for $20 off on your first purchase through SeatGeek. And until next time, I will see you all later. Peace.